You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. This episode is sponsored by Demand Derivatives, a startup futures exchange and clearinghouse trading the world's major assets in a creative new way. You already trade on an exchange. Here is your chance to own one. Before they approach large strategic partners for funding, the pioneering team at Demand Derivatives launched a crowdfunding portal so that regular traders have the chance to buy shares. Learn more and become a part of this revolutionary fintech project now at demandderivatives.com/crowdfunding. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we're back. Time to kick off our broadcast week here on the OIRN, a.k.a. the Options Insider Radio Network, a.k.a. your home for all things options related on the audio side. And what better way to kick it off, of course, than with episode 1 of the bi-weekly options extravaganza known as the Option Block, what the cool kids are calling the OB. My name is Mark Longo from the aforementioned network, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting theoptionsinsider.com. Make sure you get over there. Check it out in between episodes of the show. Fun stuff over there and more fun stuff to come. Stay tuned on that. I know I've been teasing for a little while, but I like to tease. It's fun. We'll get you some fun stuff there, of course. And, of course, if you like what you see there on the network, whatever the heck you're getting our content, make sure you do keep rating and reviewing. A lot of you have been asking where to get the archives of some of the older shows. The website and the app are the two best places to do that, because you don't have any of those gates, any of those restrictions that you have on an Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're going to get the other stuff. They sometimes only display a certain number of episodes. Of course, if you are going to one of those outlets, make sure you keep rating and reviewing. Really does help all the folks discover the content these days. If you're using the app, of course, a lot of you like to rate via the App Store rating review. That all counts as well. So keep rating and reviewing wherever you're getting the content. It does help the new folks discover the content. And, you know, we like to kick things off these days with a fun little segment we like to call Guess That 80s Theme Song. We've recently expanded it to include movies. And now, as a direct request, this is not coming from me, listeners, as a direct request from our current champion out there in the 80s theme guessing game arena, he has asked for a new wrinkle to be added to the contest. He has requested that we include now 80s wrestler entrance music into our 80s themed guessing game. And I thought about it for a while, and then I thought, you know, that's kind of fun. So I said yes. So if you like it, make sure you send all your feedback to us. If you don't like it, hit him up on Twitter at Mike TOSAW. Tell him you have single-handedly ruined the 80s theme guessing game. So, plus this also is kind of in keeping with the spirit of why we started this segment, which is kind of get the blood pumping a little bit at the beginning of the week, get everybody fired up. And this first one will definitely do that. So here we go. Can you name that 80s wrestler entrance music? We can keep going with that. I love it. I think you get the picture. If you don't know who this fellow is, you must have missed the entirety of the 80s wrestling scene, which we all know the 80s wrestling scene, still the biggest, still the best of the WWE, WWF era. Don't give me this attitude. Don't give me the modern stuff. Don't give me your John Cena's. 80s was where it was at. And this guy, this was my guy. When I was a kid, this guy was hanging on my wall in my room. Huge, cool, black and white tapestry of him on my wall that I got when I had the rare opportunity to see this individual face off in the main event against Andre the Giant when he was still alive. And he looked pretty rough when I saw him. So he was pretty much close to the end there. I saw this individual face off against the eighth wonder of the world. Andre, spoiler alert, this music wasn't for Andre. All right, I gave you that one in. All right, since we are joined now, it was Uncle Mike's idea. I'll make him go last because we are joined now by the Rock Lobster, a.k.a. Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI, a.k.a. the guy from the pit, a.k.a. the guy who earlier today was celebrating because he didn't think he was going to be on, so he didn't have to bother guessing the 80s wrestling themes. But now he's here, and he has to guess. Mr. Rock Lobster, I know you have zero idea, which is what makes it fun. But try anyway. Name a popular wrestler from the 80s, and also welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on the show. Before we had this, we were joking. I never would say anything has a zero probability of happening, but me guessing this is one of those things. So for all the listeners that don't know what zero probability is, it is this. Is me guessing who this wrestler is.
Just name a wrestler.
I only know one. But Hulk Hogan.
There you go. Go name Hulk. I figure you could at least name Hulk Hogan. I almost went with him today. Spoiler alert, this is not Hulk Hogan. I almost went with him, but I had to go. This was more my guy. I had to go this way. All right, now let's go. So it is not Hulk Hogan. Now let's go to the person who requested this. None other than Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, A, welcome back to the program. And B, what was it that made you dream up this wrinkle to our contest? And then C, I'm assuming you know who this guy is.
I'm going to go from C first because I have to admit I am stumped. I don't know who this is.
You don't know? You requested the 80s wrestlers themes. I play you perhaps the most iconic of them all, outside of maybe Hogan, and you don't know this one? Oh,
I don't know it. Who is it?
It's the Ultimate Warrior.
No, I think he had a different. I'm going to protest this one because I would have recognized that one.
No,
I disagree.
That actually came from the official WWE account of Ultimate Warrior entrance music. That is his music, sir.
No, because he had one that was dun 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 dun. He'd pound his chest and run. No, I'm going to do some research on this, and I think we might have some protest with this one.
I don't. If you protest, this is Ultimate Warrior's music. I know it by heart from a very young age, sir. When this music hit, I was popping as a kid.
All right. Well, I will go with it because you're the official, and you guys know me. I take what the officials say. I don't dispute things, so I will take that as your word. So I have to wear the hat of shame because it was my idea, and I didn't know who it was.
Wow, I'm stunned. You requested this. That was like the mother of all gimmies, the mother of all home runs. Uncle Mike, we may have to rethink this. Of course, sounds like not, because early on, the feedback, at least coming from the live chat, they're liking your idea, Uncle Mike. This is Mr. Unlimited. Says, wow, I was actually thinking about messaging you guys about adding wrestling themes for Thursday's show. Or perhaps the 90s. So apparently you and the audience, Uncle Mike, are simpatico on this. You all want wrestling. So there we go. Uncle Mike, 0 for 1. And Rock Lobster, of course, 0 for 1. I'm stunned. I'm speechless as we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading, what is lighting up. I'm still trying to get over my shock here, listeners. So if I sound a little bit unsettled for a little bit of early part of the show, I can't believe Uncle Mike didn't get the Ultimate Warrior, a.k.a. the greatest pro wrestler of all time. Fight me on that. I'll take it. Let's go. All right. All right, here we go. Kicking off the show here. We have a bit of a mixed bag out there. Dow kind of struggling to figure out what it wants to be today, whether it wants to be a real boy or go into the dark negative territory. It's flirting with the latter right now, off about 0.05%. The S&P up almost 0.2%. And the NASDAQ, once again, leading the charge to the upside, up nearly 0.2%. So mostly green on the screen out here. Coming into showtime, of course, we're also seeing a little bit of evolution out there in the vol space. We actually had VIX ticking up a little bit, of course, getting that weekend back as it likes to do early in a Monday session, up about a little more than 0.5%, or half a point, I should say, about 0.6 point. And VVIX at about 107, down about 3 points, got up as high as around 120 or something last week in the height of the sell-off, height of the madness. And VXX, again, I like saying this, right around a 40 handle coming into show, actually like 39.85. So doesn't it sound better just back at a number you can sink your teeth into? In this case, 39.85. Still have some issues out there. I know, looking around at some quotes before showtime. I know we can get quotes now, which is nice on most of the platforms, even though it seems like they're mostly only disseminating monthlies right now for VXX. So either they've forestalled on weeklies, or perhaps there's another symbol issue there with the platforms I was using out there. But I couldn't get any quotes on the weeklies, which I know a lot of you like to play in the weeklies on VXX. And Vol Q at about a 20, up about 0.25 point. So most of the Vol products kind of hovering, unched a little bit up from where they were this time last week. And I was planning to start with Uncle Mike's. I thought he would run away with it, but now we have to bury him in shame and instead go to the Rock Lobster himself. Mr. Rock Lobster, A, what's lighting up your tape? And B, are you seeing any quotes out there in the VXX weeklies? Was it just a problem with the platforms I was looking at, or is this they're not going to add the weeklies back for a little bit?
So, by the way, was that guy's name the Ultimate Warrior?
Yes.
Was that actually his
the
title?
Ultimate Warrior, yes. That music would hit, the pyro would come out, and he would come out like a bat out of hell. He would explode off the ropes. Pyro would hit again. When I saw him, he exploded out. It was the main event against Andre the Giant. He exploded. The music hits. He explodes out of the entrance ramp with pyro. Comes in. Andre standing in the ring. Clotheslines him once. Bounces off the ring. Clotheslines him again. Bounces off the ring again. Third time. Clothesline him. Andre's down. Pins him 1, 2, 3. And he's gone. The whole thing was like 45 seconds. My dad was so mad. We had spent all this money. He took me all the way to see this guy. I loved it, of course. I thought it was fantastic. He's like, that's it? That was all the Ultimate Warrior we got? So, interesting time. But that was his thing. Just pure ferocity and not much else. But hey, it was fun.
I'm not seeing any weekly quotes yet. I wonder if it's a symbology problem, because there was like VXX1 from the old symbol, and there's VXX. So it usually takes them a little bit of time to kind of get it together on the symbology. Yeah, but I haven't seen any weeklies yet. I can't imagine they're going to list the weeklies relatively soon here within a day or so. That's the only thing I can think of. I don't know why they wouldn't.
Yeah, who wants their hand forced all the way out to the end of May? Who wants that, right? Who wants to play in a month?
Right. Well, you're so spoiled. I mean, I was a floor trader. We never had weeklies. We only had weeklies once a month, So
yeah, expiration Friday actually meant something.
It is. It was like, ooh, it was exciting. But as far as lighting my tape up, I just think this, I believe, is the seminal week for vol. Like, I think we'll see either a new lower number when it's all over, or we won't. Just because I think every big tech company has earnings this week. Every big every big name that's been driving the market has earnings this week. So what the heck, right? The calendar is chock full, and I think that's why you're not going to see a whole lot of action out of VIX. I don't think you're going to see vol move very much. There is a little bit of a bid in some of the bigger stocks because QQQ is up. It's almost back to the highs of a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago. What I am noticing, too, is a little bit of a run in biotech again. Biogen has they're waiting for their Alzheimer's results, I think, in early June. A stock I've been acquiring a little bit of Regeneron lately on some of that pullback. So I think actually, so there's money kind of pouring into there. The valuations in there are like super compelling, to be honest. There's just not a lot. Biotech used to be kind of a hot, thing. Well, maybe I'm dating myself, but when they were the hot growth stocks, and right now they're trading at like no multiples. So it's either harder to get drugs passed, or again, my closet theory is all of this COVID stuff has brought so much innovation so fast. I think some of the biotech will probably start to heat up a little bit. Certainly, maybe get off some of their low multiples that they're on, but. That is for another episode, but I'm keeping an eye on those. I've been trying to buy some Biogen calls. Unless you pay up, the markets are like $1 jillion wide, and unless you pay up, they aren't selling you anything. So not easy to do, unfortunately. But as far as VIX goes, I think we could see like 15 handle this week if all the earnings are pretty good and everybody's like, woohoo, this is okay, and then there's no disasters. I think you could see that number this week, to be honest. So I think as the week unfolds, the bid for volatility will start to leave, or maybe everybody freaks out that the valuations are unsustainable and everybody sells off. So I think this is a big week for the vol products. I think it's a very big week for VXX as well, because it's so heavily weighted to the May contract right now. It just did the reverse split. It's all May. It's decaying at 30 cents a day. That's $6 a month in future decay. That's as much as I can ever remember it. I mean, the old VXX was decaying at the same rate, but it was only a $10 stock. So you're like, okay, it was about 40 cents a week, which was about 4%, per week. So it's huge, huge decay. So we rarely have, normally when VIX is 18, we're not in contango. We're usually the other way. The curve is flat, right? Because we're coming from sort of a lower vol to a higher vol. Now, because of the COVID weirdness and everything, we've been sort of this higher vol regime has not totally gone away. And the vol curve, the forward vol is such that, the front end, we don't have a lot of near-term volatility. Realized vol is only like 10%. So you get the big steep drop in the front vol. And it's producing I think, a pretty big opportunity for, the fact that VXX could just fall out of bed hard because it owns so much May. And it's mostly May. It's going to be drifting into June slowly, but it's a little bit vulnerable to getting a nice smack on the head if a lot of this, if the vol results or the earnings results are decent, we could see like a pretty low VXX, like a 36 or low. It certainly can decay at least that much into the May cycle, like the regular ordinary May cycle on the 21st. So like there's like tremendous movement potential. And this is when I like to trade it. If all this doesn't make any sense to people, of course, you can join Vol Edge or some of our Vol Trade Club or some of the products to kind of understand how they work. But it's just, this is one of those times where the futures are kind of loading up on it. It could be Mark just put out a put spread purchase in VXX for our students. So it's primed. So again, we don't know how the earnings are going to come out or how the market reacts, but if it's any kind of a meh ho hum thing, I think we're going to see like 15 handle, and I'll probably lose the crystal ball in the vol, because I was only going like mid 16s or something like that, but I think we could see lower by Friday.
would certainly be interesting. I was looking at some VXX puts myself before the shot. I like that 36 strike. I think there's something to that out there, like you were just saying, Mr. Rocklops. A lot of juice pent up in them are VXX hills. Will it come out? We shall see. Hopefully we'll get some weeklies back, so I know a lot of you can start slinging out there as well. Let's get on out now. Let's see if he's recovered from his great shame earlier today. Let's not speak of it anymore because it's just too painful. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you watching in the markets today?
I'm just hoping my family isn't listening to the show today. I embarrassed my family. I mean, I don't know how I can go on. I'm in shame. But and there was, I did do some research. That was definitely the correct theme song. He did have a more edgier version, I think, in his earlier days, which is why I was confused. But nonetheless, I failed, I lost, and I am ashamed. So, with that being said, let's talk about these markets. We're close to all-time highs right now again. We hit them on Friday in the S&P, but we're below them right now. And I think I agree with Andrew from the standpoint that this is definitely a wait-and-see market with all the earnings with which we have this week, just because of the fact that, we have a lot of them. And so markets are the S&P is up 6 points. That's next to nothing. Bonds really haven't moved that much. And we're not getting a lot of movement anywhere, quite honestly. So in looking at, we are, XLE is up 1%. So we are getting a little bit of movement in the energies, but not a lot. So I think we're going to have a wait and see market this week. I think everyone's going to be, myself included, watching the earnings as they come out throughout the week and seeing what's happening. VIX 15, that's a pretty bold prediction. So if we can get that much vol coming out, I will be impressed, Andrew. I don't doubt the crystal ball of Andrew, especially. I don't doubt anything that him and Mark say whenever it comes to the VIX, but that will be an impressive move on the VIX if we do have that. So I will be definitely watching that one with bated breath to see if we can get that much vol sucked out. That's for sure. So we have that. And what I think we're going to be looking at, or what I think we're going to see this week, is if we could hit more all-time highs, we are knocking on the door of them again. And so if we do, then there's nothing stopping this market from continuing to go higher. And if we do have the numbers that everybody likes in these earnings, then we could continue to move up. And I might be saying my special thing here on Thursday, which is I hope I am. And that's kind of what I'm seeing right now.
We're not seeing right now, though, a whole heck of a lot of paper in the market. It's kind of like the market's kind of sleepy, kind of waking up. Hopefully that Ultimate Warrior theme gave it the shot in the arm that it needed, because right now, not a lot of volume coming across the options tape. VIX at a meager 185,000 contracts. Right now, the ADV just a tick under 5,493,000. The SPY added pretty much exactly 2 million contracts. The ADV 4.4 million. The SPX 575,000, certainly light out there in VIX land, or should be SPX land. ADV 1.2 million. The Qs 433,000. That's a rounding error in the Qs these days. Even though the ADV has come in a bit, it's about 1.1 million now. And IWM doing a little bit of paper out there, 300K. It's one of the few names that is north of half of its ADV out there today. ADV is about 563,000. Did a great breakdown on all what's going on out there in small cap options on TWIFO last week. Hopefully you folks checked it out. You'll see these numbers coming into even more stark relief when we break it down, the top 10 most actives. It's one of those days, listeners, only cost you $151,000 to break into the top 10 today. So that shows you there ain't a heck of a lot on the tape. When you hear some of these names and some of these numbers, you'll agree with me. Yeah, 151,000, that's usually 70 to 100,000 less than what it could easily cost to break into the top 10 on a decently active day. That gets you all the way to Snap, $151. Number 9, MViz. This is a newcomer to the top 10. This is Microvision. This is a company that develops laser scanning technology for 3D sensing and image capture. Looks like they've got earnings coming up soon, so maybe that's driving a little bit of their paper. But again, only 195,000 contracts, but that's good enough for number 9 today. Number 8, GE, our old friend GE, back in the top 10, 199,000 contracts. Number 7, all the way down there, is Palantir, our old friend, usually good for 3 or 4, or at least 5. Today, a paltry 201,000 contracts on the tape for Palantir. Number 6, another newcomer to the top 10. This is CCIV. This is Churchill Capital. Looks like this is getting caught up in the anti-short selling madness out there. Either way, it's good for 294,000 contracts and number 6 on our list. Number 5, AMC, staying memey out there today. 351,000 contracts, number 5. Number 4, it's symbol twin AMD at 405,000 contracts. Number 3, NEO, kind of glued right around that 3 to 4 spot most days. Today it's good for 449,000. Number 2, it's Tesla, 453,000 contracts, and number 1 with a Tesla are only 453,000. So what's Apple doing? Well, spoiler alert, ain't a heck of a lot more. 473,000 contracts on the tape for, I can't remember the last time Apple has been that anemic this portion of the show. So yeah, a lot of people are maybe they're celebrating a long weekend. I don't know what it is, but not a lot of paper lighting it up. Even though we got some big names popping off this week, you could argue this is perhaps the biggest week of the cycle for earnings. Today, everyone's waiting for Albertsons. Of course, I'm joking. Today, everyone's waiting for Tesla. Good old Tesla. What will they do after the bell on Monday? We got a great poll up there. Get at it. Make your voice heard. We're playing another one of those fun guessing games. What is the largest open position in Tesla right now? I'll give you 4 choices. Don't cheat. Use your gut. Head on over at options. Make your voice heard right now. Tomorrow, we've got UPS, GE, 3M, Lilly, Crocs. They of the rubber shoe infamy. Hasbro going back out to the Toyland. Waste Management. Good old Softy. Pinterest. Alphabet, Visa, and good old S-Bucks. Wednesday, you got Boeing, our friends across the street. Spotify, CME, our other friends across the street and down a little bit. Apple, Facebook, Qualcomm, and eBay. Thursday, we got Merck, Mickey D's, also friends down the street. Their headquarters now right down the street here. So a lot of big firms right down the street here from the studios. Amazon on Thursday as well. NEO and Twitter. And then Friday, we got ExxonMobil, AstraZeneca, and Chevron. So a lot of names popping off. You guys know where to go to get those. TheOptionsInsider.com. We had some earnings move results before the open today. We got OTIS. Back to my old stomping grounds in Connecticut there were OTIS elevators. They were before the bell. They were at 71.25. They were pricing in 3.9%. They delivered 6%. So a little bit of outperforming in the elevator sector. Wow. Who knew? And we got Albertsons here as well before the bell today. They were at 19.18 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 6.1%. They delivered 6.3. Ooh, interesting. Maybe, Matt came on the show last week on Vol Views, and he predicted, and this is his data after all, he predicted we may finally be there. We may be at the moment where the worm is turning, where earnings vol may start to outperform again. Do you think we're there? I don't know. Hit us up. Let us know what you think. I'm looking at the numbers so far for the season, and so far the numbers say it's a whopping no. Week 1, 79%. Week 2 so far, again, early days for week 2, a whopping 54%. So still dramatically underperforming. But we shall see how the season fares. We got Tesla after the bell today. We got a report for them hot off the presses. You can get it in your hot little hands right now. $729.40 is where Tesla was as of this report. They were pricing in $52.53. Remember, the earnings move reports, which are the predictive ones, are in dollars. The move results, which show what happened after the fact, are in percent terms. So don't get confused there. $52.53 for the straddle right now in Tesla. In the past, they've moved $53.89. So they're pricing it a little bit lower. Maybe a chance to outperform. We shall see. Also, Google coming up a little bit later this week on the 27th. They were at 2,300 pretty much out there. They were pricing in $97.56. In the past, they've moved almost 101. So a little bit light out there as well. Let's see what Microsoft has in store for us. They're on the 27th as well. They were at $261.15 as of this announcement. They were pricing in $8. In the past, they've moved $651. So softy. Leaning a little bit heavy on the juice right now. Interesting. And we got our friends across the street here, Boeing on the 28th. They were at $238.38. They were pricing in $844. In the past, they moved $714. So extra juice on the Boeing front. Is that merited? I guess we'll find out. Boeing is one of the ones you probably could argue for because they seem to always have a surprise and usually not a good one up their sleeve. We've got here Spotify going up here, $284.11. In the past, they were at pricing in $20.40. In the past, they've moved $15.25. So that seems pretty juicy. Good old Apple. May have heard of them as well. On the 28th after the bell, they were pricing in $5.14. In the past, they moved $6.26. So a little bit light there. Let's go to Facebook as well really quick on the FANG front. 301.13 is where their stock was. 15.43 is what they were pricing in. The past they moved $18.16. Well, interesting stuff. You guys can sink your teeth into those over there, theoptionsinsider.com. Now it's time for us to sink into some weird paper. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we unleash the Eye of Sauron, see where it fixes its steely and fiery gaze today. And today we start off in Antero Resources. I haven't talked about this one in a long time. Ticker symbol AR. This is obviously a hydrocarbon exploration company trading right now $9.53, up 53 cents or nearly 6%. This is one that's had a good run. A year ago, it was trading $2.38. So it's a wee bit north. Of course, we've seen a lot of the prices out there in the energy sector have a bit of a run of late as well. So this name following suit looks like it gapped up a few times, but pretty much the trajectory has been mostly straight up. It was still trading about almost $4, $3.93 in December. So it gapped up, but not that hard. Looks like most of the run came in the beginning of this year, where really kind of oil kicked it into high gear as well. Then we saw it taken off to about almost $5, actually hit $5 on December 10th. Then it hit, let's see, $7.61 on January 12th. By February 17th, trading $9.78, so actually north of where it is right now. Got up to $10.86 on April Fool's Day, and then apparently it made a fool out of all the stockholders because it sold off pretty aggressively down to $8.96 again on April 13th. So it got walloped a little bit. Now has since rallied back up today to $9.52. So a good little pop out there. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found out here. It was the 11 calls, the May 11 calls. So it looks like someone may be thinking the party is not done because they picked up nearly 10,000 of them, 9,700 of these bad boys going up for 25 cents, lifting the offer. They were 20 cents at 25 over there on the Philly. The stock was a little bit lower when these went up. There was 9.24. So these are already looking pretty good. I looked at them before the show. I think they're trading about 45 cents or so, 40 at 45. So they've already taken off quite a bit. There are earnings coming up very soon. So this is obviously an earnings play as well. The earnings are in a couple of days on the 28th. So Mr. Rock Lobster, we're kicking it off with a bang here with some old school Odd Block paper. Earnings coming up. We're swinging for the fences. Upside, out of the money calls here. And everyone's favorite name, Antero Resources, sir. What say you about these bad boys?
If the listeners, if you want to play a fun game with stocks, look at wherever any stock is trading and then try to guess how low it was in late March, early April. Just take a wild guess.
That's a fun game or maybe depressing, depending on your viewpoint.
I always try to guess. Like, okay, this actually, I think this stock was trading below $1. So, around 83 cents. And there was a lot of them, like, oh, wow, like all these people like, oh, we had a great year last year. If you picked up some stock but nobody wanted to buy it, you certainly had a good year. So, but in this one, and this is a company that never quite recovered from the oil price debacle. Remember the whole oil prices falling out of bed? It just never became the same stock again. And it might have a shot to come back. It's weird with all this talk about green energy and all this. At least from a lower level, at least a lot of oil stocks are bouncing. I don't think this trade looks like an unreasonable trade. And as I recall, what's our regular rule? When you buy a call and it's up the day you buy it, it's usually a good sign. I think these are 35 bid right now.
Yeah, they were looking pretty good. I was looking at them before the show. They were trading like 40 at 45. So he was looking pretty good, pretty quick.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are you going to say? You buy a bunch of out-of-the-money calls and there's a bid for them immediately. So that's a good sign. And as far as, they're not unreasonably priced for options that are that close to the money. So, it could happen. You got, 3 weeks to go. So what the heck?
There you go. The Rock Lobster says, put the kids' college fund on the May 11s in Antero Resources. If I can read between the lines on that, Mr. Rock Lobster there. We're going to come back to this one. We'll keep an eye on this. Only a couple of days on this one to see if this one plays off. Who knows? Maybe this fellow is generously bidding up the upside for some nice juicy verticals for you if you are so inclined. Interesting one to keep an eye on at the very least. And of course, you're right. It was much lower back in the day there. So interesting and or sad. Let's go to next up, Range Resources Corporation, ticker symbol RRC. This one trading right now, similar level, $9.31. This is another we got a similar theme going here, listeners. This is another petroleum and nat gas exploration company. So similar price level, similar business model. Our Eye of Sauron has a theme today, apparently. And let's see, a year ago, this one was trading $5.49. If you play the Rock Lobster game, which is, I think, sad and depressing. I think we have a listener who says in the chat saying it's depressing as well. It got down to, looks like, $2.17 back on March 27th of last year. But we won't play that game because that's kind of sad. Instead, let's go to where it was exactly a year ago. It already rebounded quite a bit to $5.49. Then it gapped up, the day it hit its high, near-term high at least. It was June 8th, listeners, $8.03. Then it sold off hard again, back down to $5.15. Did that dance a few times, up to $8.84 on August 19th. Then back down again to $6.49, then back up again October 22nd, $9.39, then right back down to $6.04. This one had a number of fits. It wasn't a straight up road by any means. You had to kind of hold on to it and kind of grin and bear it a little bit to get through this one. Trading 6.25 again, December 29th, before it rallied again pretty hard up to $10.20. So nearly $4 pop by January 15th. Sold off again to $8.70, then rallied again up to $11.47. So it got well north of where it is right now, listeners, on February 17th. The high of the year is pretty much right around then at $11.60. And then it pretty much has bounced around a number of times since then. This thing seems like it just wants to create, as they used to say in my Italian family growing up, agita for the investors out here. Then it sold off again to $8.85, April 12th, kind of been bouncing around this range till today, when it's up about 50 cents or about 5.5%. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found out here. You know what? Similar name, similar price range, similar trade here as well for our number 2. We're going out to the May 10s. So these are 70 cents or so out of the money, going up for 39.7 cents. This was through the offer. These were offered at 36. The stock was $9.21. These went up, so about a dime lower. By the way, these are pre-earnings. Our announcement is imminent. It is going up after the bell today. So someone is aggressively swinging for the fences out here. They paid through the offer, and they decided they needed more because they came back again, put up a total of 14,000 of these bad boys on the day. Mr. Rock Lobster, wouldn't surprise me if we have the same player doing both here, because these are very similar trades, very similar price ranges, and they're both pre-earnings. Maybe you got a fund out there, Mr. Rock Lobster, that likes to play fast and loose around earnings, sir. What do you think? Diving into the fire here on Range Resources.
Well, I think if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck and all that duck stuff, I'm going to buy the exactly same, just out of the money calls, and I'm going to buy a ton of them, and I don't want to spend more than 50 cents. So it does sound like an MO, or maybe it's a recommendation from a service that has a lot of subscribers, but a lot of small bits of paper. I'm going through some of the, like a lot of 2s, 5s, 6s, 8s, 10s, at different intervals. So somebody definitely put out the buy on some of these. I think, I own natural gas, but I'm not really bullish, although I am bullish kind of long-term on it. It's not been the greatest investment over the last 10 years, to say the least. But this was a stock that, again, a lot of these stocks used to be worth something. Right now, they're just not. But I think the inflation, commodity trade, I just closed a FCX, a little diagonal spread, but they want this stuff. I'm sorry, but as much as they can talk down inflation, I still think the commodity area is a good place. So apparently somebody thinks so too, but they're pretty bold, Vol. I mean, the options aren't that expensive. you could actually go out, quite a ways because they're not really. This company is not paying a dividend. Is it still paying a divvy? Yeah, they haven't paid a divvy in forever. They used to pay a decent dividend, but it's been quite a while since they've paid any dividend out. So yeah, you can buy the 10 calls are $1.82. The 11 calls are $1 in Jan 2022. So not very expensive options overall in this one, even going out 8-9 months. So I guess the short, I see the reason buying the short one, but I think you get decent leverage buying some calls too if you wanted longer term investment out of this bad boy.
Yeah, this one's interesting. A 68.5 vol, if you're wondering, listeners. So two very similar trades. We'll know very quickly. Maybe we can review them on Thursday's show to see how they played off, because we'll know by then if our friend is sitting in the moolah here. Speaking of reviewing, let's pay off one from our previous shows here as well. Let's go back out. Not that far, actually, almost a month to March 29th here. We were talking about some put love in PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric, which unfortunately the ticker, not PG&E, it's PCG. Drives me crazy. You have an acronym in your name. That should probably be your ticker, but I digress. A conversation for another day. You know how I get about appropriate tickers. But PCG, at the time we talked about it back on March 29th, we talked about nearly 12,000 of the April 11 puts going up for 18 cents. Paper lifting the offer 11,833 times. The stock was 11.56 when this trade went up. Looks like they had more to do because they came in afterwards, picked up a total of 19,000 on the day. We talked about the time. This is a utility, but it doesn't look like it on the chart. This chart is all over the place. If you had looked at this chart and just said, hey, what do you think this chart is? You probably would be forgiven for guessing a biotech because it's got that range. It was $10.50, then up to $12.52, then sold off again a few weeks later down to 8 and change. Had a 52-week low of 8.35, a high of 13.34, and it hit those levels, bounced all over the place. $10 down to $8, up to nearly 13, and then back down to below 1080. This thing's been all over the place for a relatively inexpensive name, and also a utility. So not kind of action you usually see in a utility, listeners. This was pre-earnings as well. The earnings were on April. Actually, I take it back. There were no earnings included in this because April 29th was the earnings day. So these are picked up. I think we talked about it on the show about strange that they would spend this money, pay the offer to get all these puts, but then not have them go through the event you may actually want to be hedging out there. But still interesting stuff. You also noted there were some May 11 puts going up as well, about nearly 4,300 of those bad boys. So it looks like they maybe got a little bit of, they saw the memo and said, wait a minute, these April puts aren't going to carry me through the earnings. So it looks like they picked up a little bit more in May as well. But let's get to the ones we know how they performed as well. And the stock, this guy, he looks like he had a chance on him. The stock sold off down to about $11.29 on April 8th. So he got there, he got close, and then it kind of bounced again, and the stock ended up closing about $11.58 on expiration. So never really broke the 11 handle, never had a chance to really sell these for an aggressive level. He probably could have scratched some of them if he was pretty diligent back, but that was, again, already on April 8th. So that was already, a week and change after our show. So these names had already eroded a bit. So he probably could have scratched some of them. I'll have to go look and see what they closed at on that day. But he did not, either way. He let them open and he let them ride, and getting into after expiration, guess how many were open on that strike, listeners? Yep, 20,000 were still open. So unfortunately, Mr. Rock Lobster, our theme here in the odd block of buying premium, you have that brief shining moment where it seems like maybe you could do something with them. You do not, and your money goes the way of the dodo. We're pretty much 0 for a million, it seems like, on premium buys in the odd block, sir.
This is let's say PG&E. Can you think of a company that has been more beat with the unlucky stick in the last 3 or 4 years with the California wildfires and just the continued mess with the power situation there? Like this stock was almost $70 in late 2017. And it is now an $11 stock and basically will be one forever. I mean, there are two. There's besides me trying to get the chances of guessing the wrestlers, the 80s wrestlers, it's PG&E making money selling power in California anymore. I I would hate to be in that business. So anyway, I just let somebody buys the puts. They think there's going to be some kind of action, but that has to be the most, unless something miraculous happens. I just see that as the most, dead money Stalin-esque business that there is anywhere. I have zero interest in even looking at that name, to be honest. So,
well, these puts kind of went dead money as well. The time they sold off, they were trading 10 cents on the 6 right before that sell-off there. They were trading 6 cents before it, so he may have had a chance to almost scratch some of them on the 8th when it sold off a bit, but probably not. These things, he was wearing it pretty quick here, listeners. And let's see when Uncle Mike, see if he's still wearing some egg on his face as we head right on into the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the strategy block.
All right, listeners, I know you're kind of a little bit let down. I am too. Usually we're pretty excited going into the strategy block because it's Uncle Mike time. We get excited and fired up. But, he let us all down. I think we all feel that right now. So he has a long way to go to reestablish that trust, to rebuild his rapport here with us and with the audience. Uncle Mike, sir, I shall now allow you to commence your bridge rebuilding, sir, with the audience.
Like I said, I hope my family wasn't listening to the first part of the show because I don't know if I'd be welcome at future family events, quite honestly.
And rightfully so. Yes, rightfully so.
So anyway, hopefully you can forgive me with this strategy block that we have coming up. So what I want to go through today is that we actually have had VIX coming down for the first time in a while. And what I mean by that is it's by coming down, we're below the 20 mark, which I know that was a big thing. It's always a big number that we wanted to get through. And even with Andrew's prediction of us possibly going to the 15 level, it leads me into something that a lot of people have been asking me about and that that I've been talking about and that I wanted to kind of go through with it. And so the question is that all traders have this question at some stage. Should I do a vertical spread or should I do a calendar spread? And by calendar spread, I'm just going to kind of lump calendars and diagonals together for today's purpose because it has, where I'm going with this, it has the same effect. So real quick, a vertical spread is when you are buying a call and selling a call on the same underlying with the same month. And it can be a short vertical or a long vertical, but either way, it's the same month, different strikes. A calendar / horizontal spread, different months, same strike. And then diagonal is different month, different strike. But for today's purpose, I'm just going to say vertical or horizontal. So with that, you can make any of these spreads bullish, bearish, or neutral, whatever way you want to slice it. And whatever way you're going with it, you can make them long or short. And so the question comes up is, should I be using vertical spreads or horizontal spreads in the marketplace? And here's what I want to go through of how I make that decision pretty much every day. I'm going to quote the Viceroy. The Viceroy said something, I saw this probably over a decade ago, and he said something that I'll never forget at one of his presentations. Volatility is high only if you think it's high, and volatility is low only if you think it's low. And what he means by that is that sometimes people get confused in thinking, okay, well, if the VIX is at a certain level, well, then it's high. Well, it could be, but it could also go higher. And if the VIX is at a low level, then, that means it's low. Not necessarily, because it can always go lower, unless it's at zero, of course, which I've never seen. So where I'm going with this is that let's say that you believe volatility is high. If you believe volatility is high, then that means you think it's probably not going to go much higher. If you believe that volatility is low, then that means you believe that volatility isn't going to go much lower. I know it sounds a little bit oversimplified, but oftentimes people start getting caught up in numbers to where it robs them of independent thought. And that's not what we want. So what I like to look at when making the decision of going with a vertical or a horizontal spread is if volatility is high. And by volatility being high, it means that I believe volatility is high. If volatility is high, then I tend to lean more towards a vertical spread. The reason I say that is that I am essentially mitigating volatility risk. I'm not getting rid of it, but I'm making it so that if it does continue to go higher, to where, let's say that I'm wrong and volatility goes higher. Well, if that's the case, and let's say that all other factors of option pricing stay the same, well, then the options are ultimately going to expire worthless, expire in the money, or I'll ultimately get what I want from the options if volatility goes higher. And if volatility goes lower, then even better, because of the fact that, and let's assume everything else stays the same and vol goes lower, well, then maybe I can have an opportunity to buy to cover my short option. I can have a lot of things happening. So if you believe that volatility is high and you're trying to make the decision between a horizontal spread or a vertical spread, I typically lean towards the vertical. Now, what can you get burned with if volatility is high, meaning you think it's going to go lower, and you do a horizontal spread? Let's say you buy a 6-month option and you're going to sell a 1-month option. And let's just do just a straight calendar spread and you're neutral on it. And you're thinking that, okay, that the time decay in this front month option, it's so high right now, and month in, month out, I can continue to get this premium. I'll double my money in 3 months easily. Well, here's the problem if volatility goes lower. Yes, you'll get that great juice for the first month, but month 2, if volatility goes lower, you're not going to get the same premium. And on top of that, the value of your long-term option is going to go lower as well, which will be working against you. You're essentially locking in that higher volatility and you're buying it. And you're buying that high volatility. How do you know it's high volatility? Well, you believe it's high volatility. So that's where you run into a big disadvantage when trying to go with horizontal spreads or diagonal spreads when volatility is higher. So with that being said, when in doubt, if you're kind of on the borderline, I typically lean more towards verticals personally, but not to say I don't do calendars and diagonals. I do them all the time. But typically I favor the vertical if I'm kind of in doubt of, well, is it high? Is it low? I typically think it's safer to go with a vertical for directional trading, which is what I do. So with that, the strategy for today, if you believe that volatility is high, you may want to consider leaning more vertical. If you believe that volatility is low, you may want to think about leaning more horizontal or diagonal. And that is the strategy block for today.
All right, now let's keep on rolling with our final segment. It is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, where we talk about what we're keeping an eye on for the rest of this week until our next episode. Really quickly, let's pay off here some of the polls we had kicking off last week. We had a silly one, a fun one. Seems like a surprisingly difficult one, because we asked you, which level will we hit first? A VIX of 14, S at 4,300, Bitcoin at 70,000, or WTI, aka crude oil, at a 70. And it ended up being a tight race. I think I saw late on the weekend, it was actually exactly 25% across the board for each. I don't think we've ever had in a poll, really, at least not for that length of time. And it ended up slightly, VIX of 14, slightly edging it out with 26.3%, followed by 25.3% for SPX 4,300, and then a tie with 24.2% for number 3 between Bitcoin 70,000 and WTI at 70. So our audience equally split as everyone who's been on the network pretty much. This was a more challenging one than perhaps we initially thought, which makes it kind of fun. And speaking of fun, it's that time of year, listeners. It's Tesla earnings time, so we thought what better way to celebrate that crazy day than let's play another round of our favorite game. What are the size positions in Tesla right now? Can you guess the largest open options position in Tesla? We gave you 4 choices. Nice, easy, multiple choice. The June 1000s, or is it the March 2023 900s, or is it the June 2022 1 put, or is it the Jan 2023 120 put. So something there across the broad spectrum of years, something out there for each of you. One of those is correct. I'm not going to say which one. Get on out there at options and make your voice heard. We'll reveal the answer and the winner a little bit later in the week. Now let's go around the horn. Let's go back out to the Rock Lobster. Mr. Rock Lobster, what are you and Volman paying attention to until our next episode on Thursday, sir?
Well, by Thursday, I think we're going to get a good look, won't we, on how the market likes these earnings and everything. I'm trying to price some Tesla. I don't normally do like a pre-earnings. Mostly, I just view it as a small dollar gig, but I am looking. I almost feel like the paper is almost a little too complacent with it, but I'm still on the fence about it. I'll probably end up not doing anything and just wait till I see what trades tomorrow after earnings reports. So again, all the earnings. Can vol go lower? I think if the earnings are good, I think we'll see our first 15 handle in a while and maybe stick down there for a little bit. I think that'll be interesting. And and what's most impressive is during this pandemic, companies can adjust, and then people were still buying. It's like it's such a weird thing still, because I still have, even around here, so many smaller businesses really, a lot of them are coming back. And you see help signs everywhere in Maine. I don't know if that's around where you guys are, but like every road on advertising on radio. So there's still what I would guess is still strong demand in a lot of places, which I guess is going to translate into some earnings. So we'll see. But I think this earnings cycle might be some kind of a surprise. And just judging from the poll, like that's why we could rally, because nobody's expecting it. If you do a poll like that to all the listeners, you're getting 25% across the board. Hands are up. Nobody really has an inkling. So that's generally, I tend to think that is bullish when people are more confused on where the next big move is.
That could certainly be. Let's see if Uncle Mike is still confused. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what is on your radar for the rest of this week, in addition to studying some entrance music for our next show?
Yeah, I might, just out of pride, I might just go look at all those 80s wrestlers theme songs. But no, what I'm looking at going into the weekend or going into the rest of the week, definitely just watching the earnings and seeing where we're at with things. We're on the cusp of an all-time high, and I think this is going to be a very pivotal week in that if things are not good, then I could see a pretty decent pullback. But if things are good, and I think they will be personally, I could see a pretty decent move to the upside. So pretty cautious, but yet also optimistic. And if that doesn't confuse you, then I don't know what will.
Hopefully that music doesn't confuse you, because that means you've come to the end, at least, of this program. But don't worry, listeners. We got more in the hopper for you today. Have a fun one. A lot of you have been writing in saying, hey, can you get the Ledger X folks back on the crypto show? Because they're one of the few games in town when it comes to approved actual Bitcoin options trading. So ask and you shall receive. Ledger X folks will be joining me in a little bit less than an hour here on the Crypto Rundown. But before we go, let's go back around the horn. Let's start with the Uncle of Mike, sir. Mr. Uncle Mike, if folks want to reach out to you, maybe shame you a bit for your let's say, spotty wrestling knowledge, or perhaps ask some options questions, where should they go? What should they do?
You can follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW. I deserve the shame, I know. But if you are interested in working with a financial advisor who's willing to have a conversation with you on calendars versus diagonals versus verticals, feel free to also follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW, or check out my website, stcharleswealth.com, if you're looking for a financial advisor who kind of delves in the option product.
Once or twice, he likes to trade them their options. And Mr. Rock Lobster, if folks are intrigued with all the crazy stuff they want to check out for themselves, what you guys have cooking in the land of the pit, where should they go? What should they do?
Go to optionpit.com to memberships. You can check out our Vol Edge or Vol Trade Club. They're doing extremely well right now, even in a vol environment that's not doing much. So come on over, check out how to trade these vol products if you want to understand all the obscuria around volatility and keep me in a job which I like. come on over to Option Pit and check it on out. That's all I'm going to say then.
All right, that's going to do it for this one. Like I said, we'll be back in a little bit for the Crypto Rundown, talking about one of the few places you can actually trade them, their Bitcoin options, if you're in the U.S. So stay tuned for that. Of course, back again tomorrow. Got a double dose. Got a couple of cool interviews coming at you for Interview Tuesday tomorrow, because it is OIC times coming up, really, even though it's all virtual these years. Usually we do a great roundtable of interviews. Going to try to bring some of that fun back to you virtually again this year. Education Wednesday with Options Bootcamp, Options Playbook Radio. Also getting the advisors option. You're going to get a trifecta of shows there on Wednesday, and then Thursday back again for episode 2 of the Option Block.
This episode is sponsored by Demand Derivatives, a startup futures exchange and clearinghouse trading the world's major assets in a creative new way. You already trade on an exchange. Here is your chance to own one. Before they approach large strategic partners for funding, the pioneering team at Demand Derivatives launched a crowdfunding portal so that regular traders have the chance to buy shares. Learn more and become a part of this revolutionary fintech project now at demandderivatives.com/crowdfunding. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.